Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pull Focus, the cinema-based entertainment podcast where a couple of freelancers come together to talk shop. My name is Mike, and as always, I am joined by my brother in crime, truly a master of ceremonies, the Uber Uton, a guy with talent that just won't quit, regardless of how many time loops he finds himself in. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Andrus.
Oh, well, thank you. And I do appreciate being back over and 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 over
and over.
I was saying thank you.
It's never enough.
I would have done that until you interrupted me. So well done.
True to form, my friend.
Good to be here.
True to form. Yeah, it's good to have you.
And I'm excited about this one. This one's a fun one.
Yeah, me too. Like, we've been going on and doing a couple of Netflix exclusives. It's now that we're playing with a direct competitor. Of course, everybody who is anybody probably has 16 streaming services. Like it's kind of like mimicking what we had back in the old days of cable, where you had 5,000 channels or whatever. And this time we're going to be jumping over to the HULU side of the pond. It was a fun one. Yeah. Before we jump into it though, why don't we find out what's been going on in Andrus land. We had a friend on a couple podcasts ago. Always a pleasure to have new people here. But once more, it's just going to be the two of us hashing it out over this latest feature. But what's been going on with you? Everything being it is what it is, I guess. I mean, in case I think 8 people now who listen to the show regularly, hopefully.
Do you know what? I looked on our YouTube channel the other day because they're like, "Ooh, how many subscribers do you have?" Yeah. And I said, "I don't know. It's pretty high. We're growing in numbers. It's pretty high." I look at it and I'm like, "Oh, sweet, we've got 9."
Yeah, it's not. Oh, we have 9. Excellent.
9 on YouTube.
Hey.
Yeah. And then
bless you, people. Bless you.
SoundCloud. I don't know. So you'll have to tell me about SoundCloud.
SoundCloud might be a little bit dead, actually. It might be time for us just to be a YouTube only channel. Quite honestly. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
We need to diversify.
You're right.
Not live just on one platform.
How will we ever be able to spread
HULU?
Yeah, exactly.
Or iPod. Yes.
Oh my goodness!
Sorry, I know it's iTunes.
How will we ever be able to spread the Pull Focus empire if we just concentrate on one streaming platform or internet asset?
Like country to country, right?
Oh, truly.
We need to go over to different countries.
Yeah, we have to pay the tariffs, take care of the treaties. It'll be all right. But everybody's watching the same movie anyway, so it'll be okay. Right. But in case you guys hadn't noticed, once more, I mean, as it is in this age of COVID, you are hearing Andrus's lovely voice through the wonders of the internet. We're not in the same room, but we are in the same spirit as we go through and continue to do what we can to talk about movies that we think are cool and all this other stuff. And I'm doing pretty good. I mean, a couple of shuck and jives here and there, trying to, honestly, I'm actually really thankful. We were talking about this before, the show started, but things could always be worse. And quite honestly, if the hardest and most frustrating thing that I had to deal with this past couple of weeks was deciding what coffee table I was going to buy, oof.
Oh,
I consider myself super lucky.
Oh my
super
gosh.
duper lucky.
That's so intense.
The pain, man. The pain.
Oh, my anxiety level has risen so much for you.
Hey, don't judge me. This pain is real. This pain is real.
It's epic. It's very, very real. I want you to call me Judge today. How is that for a segue? Enough about you. Back to me.
I love it. I love it. Judge. Yes, Your Honor. Completely understandable.
I'm keeping my character. I'm doing a movie right now.
I love it. We got to keep you in the element. There's something about the method of your madness that makes it so that we have to just keep the ball rolling in regards to this. So, Your Honor. I suggest strongly that you keep a level head, if I may, if it pleases the court. Keep a level head as we dive into the movie that we're talking about this episode. Quite honestly, right off the bat, a pretty lovely rom-com to change things up a little bit. Of course, we are talking about the HULU original with an incredible cast of comedic actors that not only makes you laugh, might also make you a little bit cry. Of course, I am talking about Palm Springs.
Sustained.
It's going to be a beautiful wedding.
Here you are, standing on the precipice of something so much bigger than anyone here. But always
By the way,
remember,
really
you are
like
not
this
alone.
trailer.
Dude,
I don't think that we met. I'm
The
Sarah.
trailer was
Niles.
good.
it was. Yeah, it is. There's a lot of wedding
It was
shots
a-
in this.
Well, it was a little,
Nice.
a little story.
Hey, save it.
I'm glad that they did that.
Well, at least until like the part where like you see Andy Samberg get an arrow in his shoulder, then it all goes up the
It's so
window.
abrupt. I love it.
Don't come in here.
There it
It's
is.
gonna be a beautiful wedding.
Time loop established.
Good day so far? Today, tomorrow, it's all the same.
What is going on? Hey, get out of the water!
Guess you followed me. It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
That I might have heard about.
Oh boy.
Yeah. The second you fall asleep, it all just goes back to the start.
I drove all the way back home to Austin, and I still woke up here.
One time I smoked a bunch of crystal and made it all the way to Equatorial Guinea. It was a huge waste of time.
Well, then what's the point of living?
We kind of have no choice but to live.
No, I'm gonna get out of this.
Suit yourself. See you tomorrow.
Crash right into the truck.
So now what do we do?
You just have to embrace the fact that nothing matters.
Do you sleep with people in here?
Great question. I have, but it takes a lot of work. May I cut in? It's the first dance. And that's a deal breaker?
That didn't work. Let's waste some time.
It really is a good trailer, honestly.
This is crazy.
You want to dance? You know the officiant? He's got a bag of sweets in his pocket.
You were right. Got him.
I can't keep waking up in here. Everything that we are doing is meaningless.
I hope it's not all meaningless.
At least we have each other. Nothing worse than going through this shit alone.
Stop! There's a bomb in the cake. Don't worry. I used to be a bomb guy. Stand back!
It's gonna be a beautiful wedding.
Oh boy. So once more, everybody, you saw it here. We are talking about Palm Springs, the Hulu original film, but also to ring things true to the Utah Independent Circuit. It's actually it was directed, produced, made in California, but Sundance official selection actually, which I did not know before. Until watching the trailer for the fourth time. But here we have another really kind of like if you're in the doldrums and it might be easy to get a bit of a less than positive attitude nowadays, well, we might have the cure for you. From the IMDb synopsis, when carefree Niles and reluctant maid of honor Sarah have a chance encounter at a Palm Springs wedding, things get complicated as they are unable to escape the venue, themselves, or each other, which is a really good summary of this movie. We find Andy Samberg, who plays Niles, the SNL alum, Lonely Island. In fact, the Lonely Island production company, the production company that Andy first set off with his friends before he got the SNL ticket, actually had a help in producing this film. He with the lovely and talented Kristen Milioti, and with a supporting role from J.K. Simmons, Oscar Award winner, J.K. Simmons, have been able to provide us.
Peter Gallagher.
And Peter Gallagher, too. Can't forget about the.
He's kind of an icon.
He doesn't have the biggest part, but he's definitely even though he's Gallagher is an old pro at this. This man's been making movies for literally decades. All you need is a few minutes to have him on screen. You can see, you get it. Going through and talking about this film is kind of a I don't know. It's kind of like a nice aperitif. You know what I mean? It's nice to take a break from going through and diving into cinema, which is like kind of serious or heavy or whatever. Palm Springs. You could just tell from the trailer. You could look at the cast. You can tell this is going to be like a nice break, a nice breath of fresh air. It's the situation where, oh wait, you know what? Hold on, almost forgot.
Spoiler alerts!
Spoiler alerts.
If you guys have not seen this movie, turn off the podcast because we're going to talk about everything here. As
Watch
always,
it first. Just watch it. Watch it first.
I know, watch it first. What are you doing? As always, Pull Focus is definitely a spoiler-ridden podcast. I just want to let you guys know, remind that, so that, all 9 of you that are listening can be, nicely reminded in regards to what's going on here. So anyway, I thought this movie was a nice little bit of fresh air. We're going to talk about the technical things that, may have been considered shortcomings, maybe considered strengths, that kind of stuff. But quite honestly, to say it in a sentence, this is, exactly the kind of movie that the trailer was portraying it to be. This irreverent, fun, bubbly comedy that also does take some serious tones in regards to what's happening with the characters and the agency of the characters. But honestly, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you guys that I liked it. But the interesting thing about our conversation, what we're going to get into, is we're going to tell you as to why. So, Andrus, what I wanted to figure out specifically when it came to this one is that, whether or not I liked this movie as much as I did because of the times that we're in, and it does definitely come to mind a lot whenever we're talking about art, whether it's like movies or paintings or music or whatever. The time at which it's published. I mean, this thing came out back in June. Roughly like around June 10th or June 12th or something like that of 2020.
July 10th is what this is saying.
Oh, July. I apologize. July 10th.
Yeah, it's not. We're a month in.
Yeah,
technically.
So it's coming out like right towards the middle of like when things have gotten pretty heavy here with the COVID crisis and that kind of stuff. Do you think that, first of all, I want to hear what you thought about the film, what you thought your general opinion was, and then we can dive in and get into like the exact specifications. But right off the bat, do you think that maybe dealing with, the additional challenges that people are dealing with now, because this movie has gotten a lot of independent swing for it. Rotten Tomatoes, as of the publishing of the trailer, was giving it 100% freshness. It's been getting really good reviews from RobertEbert.com. A lot of like independent outlets are saying that this is a really, really good movie, and I'm wondering if it's because the story structure and the story is actually pretty simple. It's pretty much recycling the Bill Murray movie Groundhog's Day, which you guys haven't seen that. Go ahead and check it out. And though it doesn't trump Groundhog's Day, I do think that it's actually pretty good. In fact, if anything, I think it's in my top 5 of what I like to call Mike's time loop movies of choice. That's a specific category in my head.
How many time loop movies are there?
I think there's about 5. Could be wrong. But
I was gonna say, well, top 5, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Top
Yeah,
5.
not bad.
Out of 5.
But I'm dragging on a little bit. But as you discuss and we talk about like whether or not you like this film, I'm also wondering as to whether or not you think it may be because partly we kind of need a movie like this right now, right? We kind of need something that's bubbly, that has that's kind of easy to digest, but still has some pitfalls, but also some high points here and there. What are your opinions on it generally? I mean, like if you had seen this last year, do you think that your opinion would have changed?
Oh, I don't think so. I think a movie is a movie, and I think that the times that where whatever is happening currently in your life could certainly affect your viewing of a movie. If you're going through a trauma and you see a trauma on screen, you might read more into that, or if you're getting married and you happen to watch a marriage based or a marriage themed show like this, you may not want to get married. Did
you get flashbacks to the weddings that you were at? Didn't you?
Oh, no, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, I haven't been married, but so I wasn't in it.
I've officiated a wedding actually.
I've participated in all of those. But it's interesting because I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thought it was just a bundle of fun.
Nice.
And it was interesting because there was a COVID connection for me in the sense of what Andy Samberg's character was going through, the monotony, the loss of hope.
He's isolated. He's isolated for sure.
Yeah. He's literally living in a hell.
The same day.
Similar to what we are all living in the hell that we're living. Now, all of our days may seem like they're in a time loop.
Yeah, that's a good.
I mean, there was a parallel there for me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I saw the same thing, honestly.
Yeah, but the big curveball is the added Kristen, and also the added. Go ahead and spoil it. J.K. Simmons addition to the loop.
Apparently, J.K. Simmons just wanted to get on a coke bender and decided to act in this movie. It was amazing.
Oh my God, that was so much fun.
It was really good.
Yeah, and it was there were so many fun moments throughout this.
Yeah.
And not many heavy moments, although the heavy moments felt real.
They happened when they should have happened.
I don't think they went down a rabbit hole with it. So I felt like it was really, really well done in the sense of keeping kind of like the lighter tones of the movie.
I think that this is definitely following with like the common act strategy that we have with most movies of this nature. We have the first act where we have the introduction to the initial problem and to the characters that are coming through. We have the second act where we go through and develop the characters, develop their relationship, and then ultimately within that act we have the fall, the part where like things get bad and like it's up to the hero, or in this case heroes, to bring it back. And the third act is obviously like when they work towards getting back up to the positive points that was established in the first act, and then we have the ending. I think that like the different points that we have here emotionally from a storytelling point are pretty much cookie cutter, but because of the charm that this cast and the writing was able to put into it, it just made it really true to form, made it really tight, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's unique and beautiful in what it is.
Yeah, like you can tell that this is definitely somebody coming from a production company, coming from individuals who enjoy, classic romance, classic story structure, that kind of stuff. But again, like I'm an Andy Samberg fan, and it's because I don't think Andy Samberg takes himself seriously as other comedians coming out of SNL. I think that he's actually done a lot, especially when it came to like, back in the day when he was doing like, the digital shorts and some of the stuff that he's doing with like certain characters and that kind of stuff coming out of there. Now, being not only, I believe he wasn't only acting on this, but he's definitely like an executive producer or something like that. I'm not sure if he went so far as to directing anything or anything like that, but he had a bigger part to play in this.
Yeah, I'm sure that there was a lot about this that he had his hand in.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, honestly, when it came to like the Lonely Island, that's part of his production company. They definitely had a hand in crafting this and getting things taken care of. But one thing that I did enjoy about this is that the curveball, I think, which doesn't happen in a lot of rom-coms, at the point that this one did, is that we move from having the story not just about the main character, where the hero first starts with Andy Samberg's character Niles, and we're introduced into like these different threats that have to come into play. In fact, Miliotti's character Sarah, she's first introduced as like maybe an additional thing that he has to deal with, an additional challenge. But what this movie does very well is that I think it provides agency to all of its characters in an appropriate way, to the point that Samberg and Miliotti end up sharing the hero role towards the half of the movie, to the point that by the movie's ending, we're not only rooting for just Niles to get through it, we're definitely rooting for Sarah as well. And what I thought that was really refreshing about this is that it wasn't the usual thing where the first hero that was established in the narrative is the one who does the saving. It's actually Sarah who ends up saving Niles towards the end. And I thought that was pretty refreshing. And she did it because, it wasn't because of like, later on we find out that, yeah, they both fall in love, and that's something to be expected when it comes to a rom-com like this.
Spoiler alerts! Spoiler alerts!
But the initial reason as to why Sarah wants to get out of this time loop is for her. She has agency in that regard, and she is, no longer putting up with Niles' attitude, who is just more defeatist and willing to stay within the time loop until the end of, time. But what they do a very good job in regards to this is that I end up actually feeling sorry for Niles towards the end. And that's one thing that I really want to touch on in regards to this. When we're talking about like how this is no longer just about the main character at the end, and how we have two people who are actually filling the hero role, in quotes, I really enjoyed how it gave both characters agency. It gave both characters reasons. And what does that mean, right? It happens when you have logical reasons set up through the laws that have been placed up in the first act that give the characters reasons for what they're doing. And that's what they did throughout this movie, and I found it really refreshing. Do you think that I'm off my off balance here? Do you think that like maybe it shifted more over to Sarah, or do you think that there was this place where both of them became the hero, and there was this way in which they found a good resolution towards the end?
Well, I think she's the hero.
Oh, you think it's all her? Okay, cool.
I mean,
I can understand that argument for sure.
I mean, I don't know what he did to contribute to that. You know what I mean?
I can respect
I really
that.
do think that she's the hero.
I think,
and that was going to be my biggest point in the conversations that we had about that.
Gotcha.
The difference in like, he goes through the whole scope of the Groundhog Day, through the suicides, through the death attempts, through the let's just throw all inhibition out and do whatever you want to do in this circumstance. And he doesn't once try to figure it out.
Well, they give a reason as to why, right? I mean, like, he tried to, like, he talked about, like, in these, he doesn't get, like, the same camera time. He doesn't put in the same effort, because in the dialogue, he talks about, like, how many times he committed suicide to get out of it, and how many crimes he committed, and, like, how many different ways he tried to push and shove. It's just that he wasn't as creative as Sarah was when it comes to actually, through the course of the film, she becomes a quantum physicist so that she can...
That's hysterical.
That's great. She takes courses on YouTube.
101.
It's so good. And you're definitely right. Like, she's willing to go the extra mile where Niles isn't. And I think that's because, I think personally it's because, and Kristen Milioti does a really good job of this. Kristen Milioti, of course, has been in the game for a long time. I remember her from, like, How I Met Your Mother back in the day, when she was, like, doing television shows and that kind of stuff. She has this ridiculous capability of being able to say a lot with so little. You can see the way that she is going through the trials and tribulations when you find out that she actually cheated on her sister with the
Spoiler alerts. Spoiler alerts.
with the groom. In fact, that's the whole story behind what's going on. Sarah has a sister named Tala, who's played by Camila Mendes, and we find out later in the film, during the fall, that she actually slept with Tala's, her sister's fiance, the day before the wedding. And of course, like, that gives us this narrative.
What a conflict.
Yeah, conflict. And I think that's what pushes her out. She has to get out. She has to find a way out of this, because at first she's scared of dealing with this problem, and she doesn't want to be in this loop anymore. She wants to go back to her old life where she could just be away from her family, isolated, and not have to deal with any of the challenges. But through the dialogue and through the effort that we see Sarah going into to learn what's going on and actually come out of the problem, I think that it's this great part of rejuvenation, which honestly Niles doesn't get to until the end. Sarah sees this problem, and then she accepts that that's a part of herself that she has to accept, and the best way to grow from that and to forgive herself and to move on is to get out of this time loop. It's not avoidance anymore. It's acceptance, and it's being responsible for her actions. Niles gets to that point by the end, but it's not because of the things that he's done or the irresponsible nature that he's taken on or this defeatist kind of situation he's put himself in. It is really because of the love that he has for Sarah. And that's where the sweet part comes in.
Love.
Yeah. And that's where the sweet part comes into it. That's why it's really a rom-com. At a certain point, Sarah's like, look, not happening. When Niles tells her that, in fact, we did have sex. You just don't remember it because you were a different part of the time loop, and we did it a lot. That hurt her feelings. That was kind of the closer. That was the point of the fall that we're talking
the admission
about.
Of a lie.
Oh yeah. And like, he's not as cool as she thinks he is. He ends up being this lying person, but because he is able to own that, the same way that Sarah is able to own her own irresponsibility, they both come back up to the same point. They profess their love for each other, and then they end up being okay with the situation and moving on, which is what you have to do in life. But I'm glad to see that, you have put, like, the whole hero mantle on Sarah. I can definitely understand as to why that's the case.
Well, and I would put then the mantle of damsel in distress on Niles.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Because literally she saved him.
She does save him. Yeah,
that's
a very good point. I think that that's something that's one reason as to why people are digging this film, because for lack of a better term, it does play with that role a little bit, but it doesn't do it in like this, for lack of a better term, like a derogatory way. It doesn't do it just for the sake of doing it. The characters have agency. There's logical reasons set up within the laws that are put up in this movie that explain why they would do what they did. And that's really refreshing, especially nowadays. Like, when we have reasons as to, things like immersion being broken, that kind of stuff. That's the number one cardinal rule that you should never break in films when it comes to, well, at least the way that we appreciate movies in that regard. And they didn't do it. I think that the immersion was good. There was a reason why everything was happening, and everything made sense. And that's why I like calling it like a bit more like a smart kind of rom-com. It isn't just about, oh, I'm in love. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, I'm in love again. It actually makes sense as the things these characters go through.
Well, and I think that they chose the right way to tell that story.
Yeah, it wasn't about him or her being saved. It was about him or her
discovering each other.
Yeah, discovering each other and owning what they did. And I think that's something they have to do in real life anyway, which is, I don't know, a way to think about it. And that may not be very popular, because I know that I like going through and talking about like, well, the reason as to why I like this movie is because it makes sense, and it makes sense because these rules are set up or whatever. But
that there is a redemption on her side of it, because she does get to make amends with her family before anything happens.
Yeah, the speech scene, totally.
Yeah, and for Niles, I don't know that there was any reason for him to do any of it. So I don't think it's his hero's journey. I think it's her hero's journey.
Yeah, it could be her hero's journey. I can definitely pick up where you're putting down in that respect. Logically, it does make sense.
Although he has a newfound respect for life.
Yeah, that's the thing. But he finds it
the turn from complacent, whatever.
Exactly. But he finds it through her. She gives him the reason. And I think,
by the way, I love that whole storyline between his girlfriend and himself, and like the whole reason that
you mean his
there.
girlfriend Misty, played by the terribly talented Meredith Hagner. Yes.
Well, and I know how terribly talented she is, because I worked with her last year up at the Sundance Labs.
Yeah.
Like face to face worked with her, and it was just she's a very, very talented human being.
She was great. She was great. She does the awkward airhead very, very, very well, and that's actually pretty hard to pull off. It's more than just like putting on a California accent and acting dumb. You actually feel for Misty a bit too, because she's not happy in the relationship, and that in the scene where we see Trevor, played by Chris Pang, having a moment with Misty that's quite intimate, where she's cheating on Niles. And that from a narrative standpoint, that gives us the reason to legitimize his falling in love with Sarah and pushing aside his old relationship. It's interesting, the dynamic that the two of them play. Like, you can tell right off the bat in the scene where, like, they have they wake up and they're having sex and that kind of stuff, but he can't finish, and like the dialogue between the two of them, these two have been having problems for a while, and she plays off of that very well.
Together, so you're totally okay with them moving on.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's they've gone as far as they can. They realize they're not in love with each other, and like, she does such a good job of playing like the character that just doesn't get it, that instead of like turning into a positive thing, which is possible, it's all about her character. I'm like, how can you do this to me? And then on the next side, a few scenes later, you see Misty and Trevor getting it on. It's like this. Okay, well, there's a reason as to why that happened, though, and it's explained in the narrative, which is good. I think that, like, I'm talking a lot, but what I wanted to do is, before you jumped in, I wanted to pose this other question to you, because before you said that, Niles didn't have any reason for moving forward, and I absolutely agree with you in that regard. It wasn't until Sarah was acting as a catalyst to push him forward to find a reason to live. I think, honestly, this did a really good job of subtly playing with the trope that we found in Groundhog's Day. I think what really was moving Niles to a very large degree, obviously he was in love with Sarah, but I think it was the boredom. Besides the fear that he was dealing with when it came to leaving this time loop and actually having to be a responsible adult and being a living, breathing human being again, I think the two things that, besides the love that he ended up developing for Sarah, I think the boredom that he that he was feeling was probably a catalyst as well. In Groundhog's Day, the Bill Murray film, the classic, just wonderful comedy that was made back in the mid 90s. There's a quote that's I'm paraphrasing, but it says Bill Murray says, like, how do we know that God knows everything? Maybe God's not omnipotent. Maybe he's just been hanging out for so long, he just knows everything. And that's like the same thing that Andy Samberg's character is going through, which they explore in this. I think that Niles, not only because he was falling in love, but because he was so bored about playing through every different angle on this day, doing everything he could to so many people just to try and find a reason to wake up and find a way to be interested, was also something that pushed him through. Do you think that they played with that dynamic enough? Do you think they played with the idea of Niles just like knowing everything to kind of incorporate that into his character?
No.
Or do you think it was kind of like more like just a sideward glance in regards to what they're dealing with?
They played with that, certainly with our introduction to his relationship with Sarah.
Yeah.
Like the whole choreography through the dance.
Oh yeah, great scene.
I mean, he knew exactly.
He knows exactly who's going to do what at the same time.
I mean, the amount of time that he spent there already just for that. And at that point in the movie, I didn't realize that I was watching a time loop movie. Like right. That's what I wanted to bring up. I came into this movie blind.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it. So certainly there was that, and then there was the group at the bar as well. So the fact that they had those, and then there's that one big epic speech at the very end to get right on the motorcycle to go catch up to the girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I know everything about you, Dad.
It's when like his last resort,
so
Niles is trying to get to Sarah before she goes back into the time warp, but he has no way to get there. He fights with some people to like steal a truck. He goes through and tries to get back in time, but the truck blows a tire, and then he finds Spuds, played by Brian Duffy, who is this recluse shooting shotgun targets of the man who took his ex-wife away, and he professes to him because Niles has heard Spud's story so much. He's like, you know that kid that you thought you had, or whatever it is. We're paraphrasing. It's me. You're my dad.
The nightstand you had with that woman from way back.
Exactly. That beautiful scene where like he's
story, Dad.
he's hugging him and he says, "I always had a feeling," you know. It was just this beautiful thing, and then like that kind of
it was. You remember it was a virginity story. You lost your virginity. that was even better. He's just like, I had a feeling.
And then like the second that he like fulfills his purpose, he just drives off into the sunset. Like they'll play I felt a little bit sorry for Spuds because I kept getting this idea that he thought that he'd see his son the next day and that he'd be able to, play ball with him or something like that. But that's just paraphrasing.
Who's to say that he didn't come back and say, "Thanks, Dad. Come visit me."
You know what? You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
I think that he might.
Who knows? It's very, very possible. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I don't know if I'll remember to say this later on, so I will interrupt you and say this. One of the most sentimental moments was post credits for me.
Yeah,
it was the moment with J.K. coming back to the wedding.
I'm so happy they did that. Let's talk about that.
I am so happy they did that because his speech at his home was just, he had given up and he's just embracing the idea of what this eternal life is in this perpetual day. But they gave him an out too, and I was just, that touched me on it. I was like, that was really sweet.
J.K. Simmons has this capability of being able to play such a badass and to be able to put so much force behind so very little. You can see in all of his roles, from like Spider-Man to Whiplash, he has these capabilities of being able to be a real bad mother effer. But also, also like on the same dime, he can flip over and just be the funniest, sweetest character with the proper emotional outlet and the capability to make you feel sorry for him, where 5 minutes ago you just wanted to punch him in the face. And he explores that a little bit here. It's a comedy, of course, so we're not seeing like the same kind of action that we see in Whiplash from J.K. Simmons. Whiplash, or like Oz or something like that. But we do see him touching a little bit in those regards. He plays Roy, who was another individual that Niles brought into the time warp, and Roy is going through the same thing that Niles and Sarah are. In fact, his introduction is kind of like the introduction to the second act, where we talk about how these somewhat irredeemable things about Niles are beginning to come to light. And Roy is a family man. He has to live every day, starting in Pasadena or something like that. He lives in,
I think it was Irvine.
And like he was invited to the wedding, he was doing his thing. And it's this really cool dichotomy where we have Niles and Roy meeting because Roy's he's at a party. He's a bit of a party guy. He's wondering where the drugs are at. And he and Niles go on a bender, and he ends up falling into a time warp. And it begins as being this aggressive thing because Roy is nothing but angry at Niles. Roy actually plays, I think, more of like a psychological outlet, is to, what everybody would probably be going through. This is so weird. I can't change anything. It's pretty cool. Wait a minute.
Well, and who
Wait
do
a minute.
blame? You blame the guy that instigated.
Exactly. So he takes it as like a revenge kind of thing, and he constantly goes around and tries to hurt Niles. There's scenes where we see him like, dousing Niles in gasoline and lighting a match. He hunts him on a regular basis, like literally with a bow and arrow. Yeah, it's heavy. But what's beautiful about this is that it does happen after Roy gets T-boned by Sarah by a cop car.
Right.
But this ongoing theme comes through, and it's this thing that, because Roy, I think, is more experienced, he's the older of the trio. He got it pretty early, but it's this thing that Niles pops in a lot. There's nothing worse than dying slowly in the ICU. You come back, but you will always remember the terrible things that you did to people, and it's something that weighs heavily on Niles.
Pain.
Yeah.
Also the pain, and I don't think he was talking about just physical.
No, he's talking about the emotional stuff too, and that kind of like brings up like when that scene happened, which was the beginning of the fall, where ultimately Niles tells Sarah why she shouldn't have hurt Roy in that way. And he confesses to her out of anger that, hey, you know what, we've had sex, okay? It's not that big of a deal, blah, blah, blah. And that ends up like, being the big cut between their relationship, which inevitably gets healed by the end. But it definitely speaks to how long Niles has been in there, because you can tell that Andy Samberg is professing this with as much seriousness as Samberg can, where this is actually having a big toll on who he is. Not only the regular psychological things you would deal with by trying to live through the same 24 hours every day, but the mistakes, the things that he's done, the people that he's killed, the injuries that he's provoked, the hearts that he's broken, that kind of stuff. And it's an allegory for life. It really is. Everybody has regrets, and everybody, depending upon how much pain it's putting you through, by empathizing with the pain that you put other people through, everybody wishes they could go back and maybe rub a couple off of the chalkboard a little bit. Did you feel like the humanity in these characters, or was it more of like just these guys are just props to push the comedic narrative of the story?
No, and that was going to be one of my comments at the very end too. Is I don't know that I've ever seen Andy Samberg play such a real type character.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a character version of anything. It was just a dude.
Yeah, it wasn't extravagant. It was just a human being who's put into extraordinary circumstances.
I really appreciated that. And Kristen, I don't really recognize her from anything, because I didn't watch How I Met Your Mother when it came out.
Sure.
I recognize her from one or two things, but it's something that's really been a standout for me. And this one will be that for her, for me.
Gotcha. That's great.
So
I mean,
I'm a fan. She's
great. She's great.
Fantastic.
And like that's another thing too. This is something that I do respect about her, and I think about people who are doing the work that you're doing and that kind of stuff too. We're not, unfortunately, unless like something really changes for Kristen Milioti, we're not going to see her like getting an Oscar anytime soon. I don't think. Hopefully that'll change. I want all the good actors that are talented to do what they have to. But she's always been in the kind of like in the back end. She's been doing like secondary characters for like The Wolf of Wall Street and Fargo, The Brass Teapot. She's actually gone through and done vocal work for like the Venture Brothers. She was in Modern Love. She was working with a few episodes in the Mindy Project back 2015, 2016, that kind of stuff. Actors like this, the ones that understand that the job is a slog and that you're going to have to do everything you can to take whatever parts you can and learn what you can to become a better actor, become a better professional, instead of taking the attitude of, I'm moving to LA to get famous, is always refreshing to me. And Kristen is definitely an example of that. A hardworking, ridiculously talented actor who goes through and has a career. And that career is not necessarily filled with Oscar award-winning roles yet. Who knows? But just the background that this woman has. She is eminently qualified to take on any kind of role. And her past work proves that. She's been working for a very long time. Not Peter Gallagher long, but a long time in and of itself. IMDb has her even being like on The Sopranos back in 2006 when she was just a wee actress beginning to get things started.
I wonder if she was a friend of one of the kids.
It's very possible. Who knows? But that's one thing too. Let's talk about the cast. Not to get into specialities or anything like that. We haven't gotten that far yet. But this is one thing that comes up that I have mentioned on more than one occasion when it comes to independent film. And this was, by most definitions, independent film. Granted, it had some, big money coming into it.
I would call this indie. I would.
Awesome. Because the lack of capability that we have from a technical aspect, because obviously there's less money coming into this production. The weight of it when it comes to most indies is going to fall upon the cast. And this cast is really good. Obviously, we have a full cast of many people. There are a lot of guests at this wedding, and a couple of them stand out here and there. Specifically, I'm talking about like June Squibb, who played Nana Shilafin, who was the old lady who
was probably there only a few days, if anything.
Right, maybe. But I mean, she's a character who came out and said, she gave a bit of dialogue, which she knew she was in the time loop and she was there to stay. She was enjoying it. We have good stuff coming from like Chris Pang. We have stuff coming from like Tyler Hoechlin, and also Connor O'Malley, who needs to get back to the Great Lakes. His asides were so hilarious. He played the angry groomsman who just wanted to dance and drink and be inappropriate. And also like the comic Jenna Friedman, who played the bartender.
She did a great job.
Oh, she had a great job.
Yeah, she was fun.
So dry, and like some of the best lines in the movie. Ridiculous. But ultimately,
here are the drinks that you ordered.
Yeah. I love that. Ultimately, this movie though is supported mostly by Sandberg, Milioti, and Simmons. They're the three main characters, but they do such a good job, and there's really good chemistry in regards to the situation. When it comes to, we're dealing with an indie, we're dealing with an independent film, and you know as well that because of the lack of special effects, the lack of being big production, that kind of thing, of course the weight is going to be distributed on the few legs that this thing has to stand on. Do you think that there was a good dynamic between, like, did you care about all the characters regardless of like how big the parts were?
I cared enough.
Cared enough? That's a great answer.
Yeah, enough. I mean, really, it's not anybody's story, but Niles, Sarah, and Roy, really. Everybody else is secondary. Maybe Misty, but not really.
But do you think this is like a good example of like less being more?
Well, I mean, a lot of these people have quite decent careers already.
Yeah.
I mean, Tyler and Camilla have quite healthy TV careers right now.
Mm-hmm.
Peter has had a career for forever.
Yeah.
JK's had a career for forever, and it's only gotten better and better and better.
Like a fine wine.
Everybody else, I think, did their job very effectively. So, would you have liked to like gotten a bit more of like a spotlight on some of the secondary characters at all? Not at all. It's not necessary.
Okay.
It's only necessary for me if they have a bigger part to play in the loop itself.
Yeah.
I mean, just the three of them, I think, are the key players in that sense.
I kind of agree with that. I mean, like, it is one thing to have like these different asides, and one of the good examples of that is where we're dealing with Tala, who was who's Sarah's sister, played by Camila Mendes, like I mentioned before.
Yeah.
She's only in the film for maybe 8 to 10 minutes, if that. But because of the way,
that's probably pretty accurate.
But because I'm an excellent estimator of time.
Mm-hmm.
But because that the scenes that she is in, she is the focus of, and also it determines a big how can I put this? It's a huge catalyst for us to understand the character that Milioti is playing. Sure. Those scenes where we see Mendes react to Milioti telling her that she cheated on she cheated on her with her right with her fiance.
Yeah,
just the look in her face, and the fact that isn't revealed at all. The story structure in here is really rather competent because you didn't know what she said and didn't know like that being a defining factor of her character until the end of the movie. They didn't bury the lead, but they didn't give it away too soon either, and I thought that was pretty brilliant in regards to the structure.
I did too. I did too. And you do need capable actors to pull those moments off.
Absolutely. If you only have 5 minutes to make a point, you got to make sure the people are
she's beyond
talented.
capable.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, she has a career for a reason, for sure. But could another actor had played that role and done just as fine a job? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, but I'm glad that she got it. I think that she fits as a sister to Kristen's Sarah. So
it goes more to them just like looking alike. Like everybody who had interaction here had chemistry of some sort or another, whether it was sisterly love, familial love, or it was actually passionate love or something like that. You could definitely see it going through in regards to this. And they didn't give everybody a lot to work off of. Pretty much, I think that, from production standpoint, a lot of these actors were in for a day or two. They did their scenes. There's probably, a couple of shooting days where it was just the wedding.
Probably a good week, is my guess.
Yeah.
Just to go through everything.
I think that when you double check and see, just the money behind it too, it kind of gives like an idea of, an idea of what if the production schedule was rigorous or not. They went through and the opening weekend here, they were up to 164,000. I'm not exactly sure
that
how.
That was probably just a limited release with 1 or 2 showings. You know what I mean? I don't think that was much, because I don't think it got an opportunity to go out there because of COVID and all of that.
Well, that's another thing too. Like this is a situation. I don't mean to cut you off, but before this is another question I wanted to ask in regards to this, from this being a technical situation. You deal with more than just the acting part of it. A lot of your work as well is behind the camera, like through casting and through production and coordination and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. This is definitely an example of like the future of movies. Nobody's going into theaters anymore. Everybody saw this on stream. I saw this on stream. You saw this on stream.
Yeah, it's on Hulu.
And it's not making as much money as it possibly could have if it had a worldwide gross and like, a major theater or whatever. But everybody's talking about this movie. Everybody. It's a very popular situation. So how does the dynamic change, specifically from where you're sitting from, like, casting, production, that kind of stuff, when it comes to the strategies that you're going to incorporate into a story when it's going to be seen in a living room and not in a big theater?
Well, the answer to that is I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
It's new.
It is, right? Like that's the thing.
I mean, I don't know that the plan was to release on Hulu. I don't know. Not at first.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it went to Sundance. It was an official selection, so it probably was purchased, and they got their deal through Hulu at Sundance, or before or after, or whatever their situation.
Maybe it was part of the. Maybe it was like part of the ad campaign or something. Maybe it was something where it's like, look, we're going to do like a 2 to 3 week run, try to get some big weekends, and then we'll put it on your platform. We'll see what happens next. Maybe.
But I think this could have been, big screen worthy.
For sure.
I mean, I think as far as the plan to put this as a release in theaters would have probably paid off, because it's crass enough. Oh, sorry, kicking my microphone. It's crass enough that I think that the goobers that like the crass stuff would go out and see it. And I think that it's rom-com enough that it would be a great date night movie.
Yeah, it's a great date night movie for sure.
So I think that
from a marketing standpoint, you mean,
probably was to release it in theaters, and because of the world the way that it is now, they'd rather just send it out on Hulu, because it's an amazing platform to show off their movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing too. Like this is going to be, and we talked about this a couple episodes too. What are movies going to look like in the future? They're going to look like this. We're going to have licensed deals where production studios, like Hulu didn't have any kind of production credits in regards to this until after it was sold. This was taken up by Limelight, Sun Entertainment.
This is truly independent.
Yeah, truly independent. But we're going to have more streaming platforms, more multi-billion-dollar corporations. Netflix has been doing this. They did it with the old guard. They have full production studios now. It isn't a situation where you get up to the big three, Sony, Warner Brothers, and Miramax or whatever, and then sell it to some sort of distributor. The distributor is the studio now. Yeah. And like when it comes to that situation, I don't see, like we have like this whole thing with like Chris Nolan like talking about Tenet, this movie that's supposed to come out. It was supposed to be this huge summer blockbuster, and they were saying, regardless of COVID, a movie that hopefully we'll be able to talk about in the future. Despite COVID, we're still going to release it in theaters because we need to save the industry or anything. The industry is completely different. The industry is going to be a situation where I think we're going to have streaming studios that are not only going to be able to talk about how they can deal with the marketing, the technicality, the distribution, but I think because now, from this point forward, the audiences that movies are going to find are going to be a family in their living room, that we're going to see differences now when it comes to production structure, when it comes to story structure. We're not going to have as many that are the huge Michael Bay films that part of the draw is seeing it in the theater. We're going to see more independent film, I think. We're going to see more quietly produced films like this.
Here's my answer to you on that.
Yeah.
Most people, like, I don't know about the average Joe anymore, but I would say most people in America that have some sort of disposable income.
How dare you?
Have quite large TVs now.
Yeah, but not as big as a theater, though, right? I mean, it's close.
Not as big as a theater, but I mean, everybody can watch their shows comfortably on their big screen TV.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I used to be pretty proud of my, what was it, the 13-inch, like my personal TV in my room.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, that's pretty sweet. And then I had my own flat TV. Ooh.
Just like evolving, moving on.
There was this evolution. And now there's like 25 TVs I have access to across who knows, plus projectors and anything else.
I gotcha.
Not that I own all of them, because I don't, because that would be insane. But there's certainly,
yeah, one would think you're like a film enthusiast or something.
I mean, you can project something on the side of a building and watch a big screen there. So
totally.
I mean, if people really want to see something on a big screen, they have the opportunity to do so.
In a sense, but I disagree with the idea of it.
There's the whole adventure side of it. Where
there is,
and you're going as like the whole effect of the outing and making it a special trip.
Yeah.
I'll forever miss that, going to movie theaters, because I'm not sure that I'm going to go back to one until...
It's not going to be anytime soon.
Until there's the idea of a safe environment.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that I can respect completely where you're coming from, but I will be pleasantly surprised if we see like the same amount, at least, of these big summer blockbusters that haven't been engineered to work better with a pair of headphones instead of a THX 5.1 stereo delay array or something.
To your point, I wanted to see Tenet.
It looks great. Hopefully,
I want to see Wonder Woman 84 on screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's the things that I would really, really like to see on screen. This one isn't necessarily one of those.
Right.
But a movie like Old Guard that has a lot of big action segments to it, I would love to see that on the big screen. That would be really fun.
It would be.
But that's not the way.
We'll see what happens. Well, look, we're getting close to the end now, and as always, I want to jump into our specializations a little bit. We touched on the cast a little bit in regards to how this movie does a really good job of doing a lot with a little, which is what we find in most indie movies that come out. Well, at least in my experience. Do me a favor and dig a little bit deeper. Like, what were some of the problems that you thought, some of the challenges that you think these actors were going to be facing, and what did they do really, really well, given your specialization? I mean, you're used to this. You've been doing independent film for years.
Yeah.
I bet you could probably imagine what it must have been like to be on set and to get this thing done. What was kind of like, hitting you while you were watching this thing?
First and foremost, in a movie with like a recurring scene, just the continuity. Nightmares involved with it.
For sure.
I mean, think about how many people attended that wedding.
I don't want to.
Right? Think about how many people attended that wedding. So include the extras in that, right? And think about the wardrobe.
Done.
Wearing the same thing for how long?
Too much.
Right? Why do you think Andy is wearing what Andy is wearing throughout the whole damn show? It's because it's comfortable.
Right.
So if he wasn't comfortable the whole time, I mean, yeah, good grief. Look at what Kristen was wearing. She wore the really nice dress for the wedding, but everything else was just like easy, right?
But from a continuity standpoint, that can be challenging too, right? Like we have to
every single thing about it. Think about the decorations. Think about the table dressings. Think about the food. Think about all of the little details involved in all of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
On top of having like maybe like the occasional script rewrite and that kind of stuff.
Sure,
Oof.
But everything felt pretty seamless.
Yeah.
All the way through for me. I thought that this was an excellent production as far as the details go, because nothing stood out as a ticking time bomb.
Especially going back to what you said before with the post-credit scene where J.K. Simmons' character actually finds out how he can get out of the bubble, which is very sweet.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as the acting and the performances go, they had a tough job ahead of them. Anytime you do something where you're repeating the day and you're doing something different, it's tough enough for us as actors that have one day and you're going back and forth through the timeline in the one day.
You think you get bored?
No. I think ultimately you just need to know what timeline you're on.
Yeah. Okay.
I think for Andy, if it was me going through it, I would have to go, okay, well, what day is this? Is this number 15,000?
Right. That was
250,896.
Like that was the question I had throughout the film. I'm like, my God, how long has he been in there? I'm sure.
And I thought that for Groundhog Day as well.
Yeah. No, I think he was like roughly after watching both leads. I think I have the general opinion that they were there for like at least 50 years or something like that. At least Andy was.
Well, and think about Kristen.
Yeah, she had to learn quantum physics over YouTube. I mean, that takes a long time.
So, and even if it was like maybe a bachelor's version of it, maybe a master's version of it, maybe a PhD version of it.
Right.
How long did she actually stay in it?
What would you do? Do you think you would do the same thing? Like if you're caught in a time loop?
I actually thought about that.
Yeah, I did too.
and I'm like, no, I would be an Andy Samberg for sure. I'm not a Kristen. Well, I actually might be a Roy.
I got you.
I might go a little bit crazy.
Yeah, for real. I my sanity would definitely go out the window after a while.
But I mean, I think Niles had his fair share of why not try anything and everything, No
harm, no foul.
Anything and everything. So
great. He had. We found out his character might be bisexual. Who knows? I mean, I
wasn't going there. I was talking about everything and everything.
That was the thing. That was the thing that regimented with me.
He's like, "Who did you sleep with?" And I love that joke. Well, and then there was your dad.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I do like it. I do like that he was talking about like, well, why didn't you sleep with everybody? And like, obviously, he's like, well, it's kind of hard to seduce people in one day to go that far. Not impossible.
I guarantee you, he slept with everybody.
Everybody in there. Yeah.
Everybody. Because why not?
Yeah, for sure. I think. What else did you want to bring up in regards?
I was just gonna say overall, I just think that the cast that they put together on this was just a home run, a
breath of fresh air.
Cast.
Yeah,
it really was. Plus, there are a bunch of people we were introduced to that maybe we wouldn't have normally seen.
Yeah,
I love that J.K. Simmons was a part of it because he's such an independent guy. Brilliant. And I'm so glad that he's not turning down independence because of his success.
Yeah.
So, all of them. I'm really happy to know all of them now.
That's great.
Very much.
I didn't feel like there was any kind of lack of chemistry given their points, given their parts. Excuse me. And the immersion was not broken for me at all. They set up the rules, and then they were honorable to the rules, and they explained things that happened through just smart dialogue and good story cuts. So from that point, it's a very competent film. I think that from a sound standpoint, this is easy peasy. I mean, you're on an isolated set. The hardest things you're going to have to deal with is like, the outdoor work, that kind of stuff. And even
there's a lot of outdoor.
Yeah. And as long as you have like, the right filters and enough people on the sound crew, that's going to be relatively easy to take care of.
I was going to ask you about sound. How did you feel about the underwater stuff?
It was fine. That's interesting too, because unless you have like, I can't remember like the model numbers of a companies that make them, but you can do a lot with some hair bands and some properly placed condoms on your C3E sync and microphones, and also like a lot of that's in post too. I mean, that stuff's pretty easy to do, and really, I mean, if anything, one of the challenges you have when it comes to films that are I mean, I think like the outdoor, like depending upon the weather, right? Outdoors is going to be easier on this feature than indoors, because a lot of it's going to be filled by Foley. a lot of it's, you're not going to be too worried about it, about them sounding like they're shouting at each other or anything because they're outside. They're supposed to be speaking louder. I've had the experience when I've been on shoots that have been heavily indoors, where the biggest situation is like maybe picking up noises from the crafty table, or like maybe picking up like soft drinks that are open on sets, or anything. Like these microphones are incredible, and when you have like an isolated space where there's a lot of air moving, you can hear people's heartbeats sometimes. It's pretty amazing. So if anything, like that was a challenge, but honestly, sound crew probably had, true professionals, right? You're gonna have a challenging time if you make it challenging, but luckily when you're dealing with like a feature like this, where what I found with like most independent film, well, honestly, the only features that I've done have been independent. So, in my experience, the more control you have of your environment, obviously, the easier your job is going to be. And it's always nice to be able to be shooting in the living room. It might be a little bit cramped if you're going to be in there for the full 12-hour day, 3 days in a row, or whatever. But it's a lot easier to deal with than when you're on a big sound stage and you have to make sure that you don't get too close to the explosions that are happening next to the car wreck. So, I think that's kind of refreshing, and it was just everything made sense. It wasn't like, we were expecting anything dynamic or anything. If anything, it was nice to, make sure we could hear the characters. And if anything, the sound in this particular regard isn't going to win any awards. But that's not always the sound's job. The sound's job in a lot of stuff like this is to make sure it supports the characters, make sure everybody's heard clearly, and make sure that the narrative is going to be able to be easily accessible and work as well as the camera did when it came to gluing everything together, which is extremely vague. But think about it.
I thought the sound was terrible.
Yeah, exactly. It's terrible. I can't stand it.
Awful.
My goodness.
I couldn't hear anybody. Anything. I didn't know what was going on.
In fact, I take back everything about this movie. This movie is terrible. This movie is terrible. Andy Samberg should be ashamed of himself.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, we're going to continue on then and remind you that if you like this movie, go ahead and, or like this movie, maybe you haven't even seen it, but if you like what we're talking about and you haven't seen it, sorry for spoiling it for you, but go ahead and check out Palm Springs. It's a nice, bubbly, competent, capable rom-com with a great cast, amazing sound, and a story that, even though it's dealing with extravagant circumstances, kind of makes sense. Feel free to, tell us how we did. Go ahead and give us an email at pullfocuspod@gmail.com. Like and subscribe on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and, go through and, give us a listen. Listen to our other shows and that kind of stuff. Let us know how we're doing. Because as always, we may not be wrong, but it's your job to tell us. And as usual, if you are listening to this and you happen to be one of those incredible individuals who is still providing help in any way you can, to all of the DoorDash warriors, to all of the people on the front line offering medical help, this is still the time of COVID, and we want to remind everybody to please be safe, but to also say thank you to everybody who's making a difference in their own way. God bless you. We appreciate you, and we're there for you. And if there's anything that this show has done to alleviate some, just giving you a break, talk about a silly movie, then we're happy to do it. Andrus, thank you so very much as always. Really do appreciate you being here. Really good hearing from you and talking to you. And I can't wait until we get to the next one and see what's up. It's always good to see you on my computer screen, and I can't wait until I can see you in person. It's gonna be great.
Right back at you.
Awesome. Take care. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.